Hi, it's Anna. Welcome back to Books on the Go. I think I've missed a June wrap up in there somewhere, but I thought I'd wrap up quickly the books I've been reading recently. And it's a very wintry day here in Adelaide, so it's been raining, hailing, flooding everywhere. So apologies for my hair. I'm a bit dishevelled, but here we go. The first one we did on the podcast recently, which is Still Life by Sarah Winman. And so you can check out the podcast episode. Amanda and I talked about it, and we both actually felt the same way on the whole. We really enjoyed it, but also for, I think, both of us, the tone of it is a bit sweet and sentimental, and we both found it a little bit slow. But it was a very beautiful book. I think a lot of people will love it. And in fact, Amanda said her book club had read it, and most of the people in the book club just adored it. So I think this book will get a lot of love, and especially people who've been in lockdown or just had a tough year or so. It's a very optimistic book. There's a lot of beautiful food and travel. It's partly set in Florence, and so it's very escapist and a comforting read. And the characters are friends. It's a sort of maid family with Ulysses, and taking him from the 1940s to the 1970s with his friends who sort of become his family, and the way they care about each other. And it's just a very heartwarming book. So I think a lot of people will love it. It was a little bit twee for my taste, but you know, a nice cozy read. So that was Still Life. And then some that I wrapped up in my Gulwa vlog. So I won't go into too much detail here. I won't repeat myself, but How to Kidnap the Rich by Rahul Raina, which is a fun read set in Delhi. And it's about the Ramesh, I think his name is. Who is the main? Yeah, Ramesh, the main character, sits exams for rich kids who want to get top grades, but can't do the study, or their parents really want to guarantee it. So his business is exam fraud, basically. But one of his students gets the top grade, and that throws him into this world of celebrity. And then all sorts of hijinks follow. They get kidnapped. And for me, it went a little bit too over the top in terms of the plot. But it was really fun, very colourful, some really sharp observations about India and the divide between the rich and the poor, and very vivid and sort of cinematic, and I can see it being adapted for screen, very sort of fast-paced and great characters. So that is How to Kidnap the Rich by Rahul Raina. Then I read, and I think we're doing it on the podcast, we're doing this on the podcast, At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop, translated by Anna Moschovakis, and I have to reread the last bit. So this is about two soldiers, Senegalese soldiers fighting for France in the First World War, and it's a short book but very intense and very beautiful, and the translation is stunning, beautifully written, very lyrical, sort of musical rhythmic sentences, and quite profound. And I just have to go back and reread that last sort of section because I was too tired, and there was quite a jolt when I got towards the end, and I have to go back and see what happened. But it reminded me a bit of Albert Camus' The Fall, in that it's a sort of confession style, stream of consciousness almost, and just has a lovely pace and a lot to think about, and really a lot to read between the lines. So I can see why this won the International Booker, and I'm excited to see what Amanda thinks about this one. So that will be coming up on the podcast, At Night All Blood is Black. Then, quite a change of pace, I read The Good Turn by Dervla McTiernan. So I picked this up at South Seas Bookshops when we were down at Gulwa at Port Elliot. Is that one of my favourite bookshops? And I'd been waiting to read it, and it has just come out in paperback. So that was a good opportunity because it's a nice, easy size to read. So I read Dervla McTiernan's first two crime novels, The Ruin and The Scholar, and this is The Good Turn. So again, set in Ireland, England. Dervla McTiernan is now based in Perth, Australia, but she is Irish, and well, Irish Australian now. And there's a police officer, is it Cormac Riley, who was in, I think, the first two books, and he's in this one as well. And of course, he's disenchanted, and all of the internal politics are going on. And then there's another police officer, Peter Fisher, and there are sort of two mysteries going on. It's really good. I couldn't put it down. I actually finished this in one day. So set in and around Galway mainly, and also partly in Roundstone, which I think is in or near Galway as well, but it's a beach village. So it's got a great sense of place, and I really recommend this one if you're looking for a good crime novel. That's The Good Turn. Then I just bought this because I really enjoyed Daisy Jones and the Six. So this is Taylor Jenkins Reid, Malibu Rising, her latest novel, and I've been feeling like some nice easy reads. So this fitted that bill. I didn't enjoy it as much as Daisy Jones and the Six, which I thought was a bit more heartfelt. This was quite glossy, and I think will be amazing on screen. So I really want to see this adapted, and I'm sure it will be. So it's based on it's a family, and it's the Reaver family, and their father was a famous rock singer or rock star in the 1950s, I want to say 50s or 60s, and then he had these 4 kids, and they now live on the coast. Is it California? It's Malibu. Of course it's Malibu. What am I saying? Malibu Rising. And they have a party every year. So Nina, I think she's the eldest, she hosts the party. She's just unfortunately had a split from her husband, who's a famous tennis player, but she's still going ahead. The party goes on, and then she has her brother Jay, her sister, her other brother or half-brother Hud, her sister Kit, and they're all very stunning and talented in different ways, but they all have problems, of course, and we sort of unearth those over the course of the book. It's a really fun read. She has this way of writing compulsive stories that you keep wanting to turn the page, and you can see the characters. They're very well observed, but at the same time, it is very glossy and quite superficial, this one. It's fun to imagine, and I haven't listened yet to any interviews with Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I would love to know her inspiration. But it's fun to imagine who was she thinking of, because I know in Daisy Jones and the Six, there was a Fleetwood Mac vibe in that one, and this one I'm almost thinking of Elvis Presley and imagining him having 4 children who all look a bit like him, because he's quite distinctive. You can just imagine how your mind would go down. What if this happened? What if that happened? And it would be really fun to write, and it is a fun book. You can get that sense that she enjoyed writing it, and I really would love to sit down and zone out and watch this on TV. It would be beautiful on screen, lots of surf, beautiful homes, and fun settings. So that is Malibu Rising. I do recommend it if you're looking for that. It is a classic sort of beach read. She does it really well. Then I bought this because Simon Savage had mentioned it on his channel, and I loved the cover, which is You Exist Too Much by Zaina Arafat. I loved the cover, but also the premise, which is that it doesn't say, I've forgotten her name, but the narrator is living in Brooklyn with her girlfriend, and she's also flashing back to time that she spent growing up and going back to Jordan and Palestine. She's got a Palestinian family or parents. Her mother is incredibly difficult, and that reminded me a little bit of Burnt Sugar, where her mother seems almost quite unhinged and very sort of mean to her daughter. So her daughter, the narrator, has had an eating disorder, which she says she's recovering from, and she's had treatment for, and then she has this girlfriend, but she's not committed, and she keeps wanting to find sort of cheap thrills elsewhere, and she sort of checks herself into this treatment centre for love addiction. And Simon said he DNF'd it recently, and I had the same feelings, which was I wasn't that interested. I just for some reason found it hard to care about her so-called love addiction. It it actually had all the bits that you wouldn't want about being in a treatment centre doing group therapy, but it didn't quite get through that with a sense of, there wasn't enough humour, or there wasn't enough to offset it to make us think, okay, but I'm happy to read it because, I care about the character, or because she's made it really funny or something. It actually did feel like we're going through this, even though, she has a very scathing approach to it, as, I think I would as well. Yeah, somehow it just didn't grab me. I didn't care. And so even then, the bits where we flash back, which were quite interesting, I wasn't really invested. So I sort of bailed on it as well. About halfway through, that's You Exist Too Much. But I'd be interested to see what Zaina Arafat does next, because it was a really intriguing premise, that one, but couldn't finish it. And then the next one, which we're doing on the podcast shortly, is Dreamland by Rosa Rankine. And Annie put me onto this. I had seen other people mention it, and I just realised that Rosa Rankine is an author. I have been waiting for her next book because I read The Last Kings of Sark when I was in Guernsey a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It was a very summery, sort of lush book that suited the summer of Guernsey. It was set in one of the other Channel Islands of Sark, and I just really enjoyed the whole experience of reading it and her sort of effortless writing style. And this has all of that wonderful, tender relationships and natural writing style that feels really easy and really effortless, but she's obviously super talented. But this is a dystopic fiction, so it's the main character is Chance. She lives with her mother and her brother JD, and they move out of London in the near future, in a sort of climate affected future, to Margate. And they're really scrabbling, and she ends up not really going to school, and she's becomes a thief, and it's a very tough life. And then she meets a girl and they form this bond, and it goes on from there. I'm halfway through. I'm 2/3 of the way through. I'm really enjoying it on the one hand, and I think she's created some beautiful, memorable characters, and there's a lot to think about in the way that politicians deal with this scenario, and in the way that people respond to that, and the divide between the rich and the poor, and how that might be exaggerated in in a climate changed dystopic future. But it's also quite bleak, and it's depressing me a little bit. So I don't know. I've just messaged Annie to say, does it get happier? So I sort of want to know what happens, but I don't know how much more. I don't know whether I'll finish it. Let me know if you've read it, because it is beautiful. We'll see how we go. Annie, I think, really enjoyed it, but we'll be talking about that next week for the podcast. So there's some recent reads. Let me know what you've been reading, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.